We're ready to begin. Was that my cue? You know, you have to be very specific with me. However, thank you and good afternoon to everyone that has taken out the time of their busy schedule to join us today for this quick overview about the Future Ready Oregon Apprenticeship Grant Opportunity. I am Lisa Ransom. I'm the director of the Apprenticeship and Training Division. And on staff from the division today is Sabrina Catalina, who is our competitive grants manager, who will be guiding you through this period of instruction, as well as Abby Bandaraga, who is our apprenticeship operations manager. Um, for everyone that's here, the mission at the Apprenticeship and Training Division, our mission is to bridge the gap between businesses, workers, and education partners to support opportunities for family wage jobs and a dependable, qualified workforce through excellent registered apprenticeship programs. The Apprenticeship and Training Division is the Department of Labor's approved certifying authority for registered apprenticeship in Oregon. Essentially, we provide the technical assistance to industry and employer groups who are seeking to establish new apprenticeship programs and provide expertise and oversight for the regulation of apprenticeship in Oregon. So, why are we here? We are here because apprenticeship in Oregon is expanding. We currently have 156 apprenticeship programs and overseeing more than 10,000 apprentices across the state. This is a historic time in Oregon registered apprenticeship programs. We're seeing some of the highest skilled worker shortages of our lifetime. Oregon still has more job openings than unemployed workers. For every new job that's added, there'll be another 9 job openings to replace workers who retire, leave the workforce, or make a major occupational change. Between now and 2030, it has been forecasted that Oregon is going to have more than 2.5 job openings, and more industries are seeking registered apprenticeship as a solution to fulfill their skilled workforce shortages. So, Senate Bill 1545. Senate Bill 1545, as we affectionately call it, Future Ready Oregon, or FRO, it was just signed recently by Governor Brown and is a comprehensive $200 million package of investments that will work together to advance equitable workforce systems that support people with education, training, and resources that they need to get into good paying, sustainable careers, not jobs, careers. This measure prioritizes key populations, advances collaborations and partnerships with some community and culturally based organizations, as well as workforce education and training partners. Now, of this $200 million investment, it includes a $20 million investment to expand apprenticeship to key growth sectors in order for us to build a skilled, more diversified workforce in healthcare, manufacturing, and also support construction, pre-apprenticeship, and youth apprenticeships, all to just bolster our workforce pipeline. The measure also establishes a grant program that will be administered by the Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council. And it has also, as I introduced Sabrina before, it's added a competitive grants unit to our existing structure within our division that helps support the apprenticeship, the registered apprenticeship system itself. We've already begun to hire staff for that new competitive grants unit because as part of historic times in apprenticeship, that means that our Apprenticeship and Training Council now is the governing body that oversees the administration of this grant making process and the administration of the grant awarding. So with that, we've hired Sabrina Catalina, who is the grants manager, and we will be hiring an additional 4 more additional staff members to support the increased workload that's been placed upon our division to move these applications through a streamlined process of evaluation in order for us to prep our council for approval of these packages. Now, Sabrina's going to go into a greater level of detail as far as the timeline, but high level, It's a short amount of time with a lot of things that need to take place over the next year. And we're here talking about the first of 3 rounds of requests for proposals. And knowing that within this short time frame internally, our responsibility is to evaluate, identify sustainable programs that will do that will meet the impact of the intention of this measure, which is to build Oregon's workforce. So without further ado, I know we didn't log on to hear from me all afternoon. I will go on mute so that we can get into the presentation, and there will be periods throughout where you can ask your questions. And we have a member of our staff that will be overseeing the chat. So with that, Sabrina, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Director Ransom, and thank you, Abby, for being our subject matter expert for today. Abby will be monitoring the chat, so as I move us through the presentation, feel free to use the chat to submit your questions as we go through the presentation. We'll pause between the information about the large grants and the small grants for questions specific to those, and also have time at the end for general open Q&A. So again, encouraging you to submit those questions in the chat as they surface for you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So we'll get started with just a brief overview of some background information. You are at our second Q&A session. This is the same session that was presented yesterday, and the recording for this session will be posted along with the presentation slides to our website. The agenda for today, we'll do the brief overview, talk about the large grants, the small grants, and have the general Q&A. And as I move through the presentation, you'll see 2 different icons on some of the screens. You'll see a bold icon that is in reference to a link, and those are links that are specific to our agency, so specific to BOLI Apprenticeship Grants. Those links are listed on this presentation slide, and then we have a couple of other links as well, and those are noted with this unbold link. So as I'm moving through the presentation, I'll let you know that we have a link, or we have a resource on our website, and you can come back to these slides and find those links easily here. As Director Ransom noted, the funds for the BOLI Apprenticeship Grants Program are from Senate Bill 1545. And where did that concept come from? It came from the Racial Justice Committee, Workforce Group, and Policy Committees. And they were tasked with coming up with the concept to address the worker shortage, as Director Ransom noted. The work of the committee and the work group started in 2020. So that was, and it was pre-pandemic, and at that time, the worker shortage was 300,000. The concept went to legislation. We are here at Senate Bill 1545, which is the Workforce Training Investment Package, $200 million in total. And while BOLI apprenticeship grants make up a small portion of those funds, information about the programs and the distribution of the remaining funds can be found on the Higher Education Coordinating Commission's website. So the HEC is the collaborating body that is coordinating all of the information about the programs and funds through Future Ready Oregon. So again, you can find more information on their website. So getting to these apprenticeship grants specifically. So the Bureau of Labor and Industries oversees, has jurisdiction over many areas. One of those through the Apprenticeship and Training Division, being registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship. And as Director Ransom noted, the Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council is the body that is overseeing the grant making process for apprenticeship grants. And before this grant making program, also oversees registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. Information about the council can be found on our website. It includes current members and a meeting schedule. I'll talk about this a little bit later in the presentation, but those council meetings are where the final determinations will happen for these apprenticeship grants. So as mentioned, BOLI as an agency received $20 million in Future Ready Oregon funds. $18.9 million will be specifically for grant awards. We will have 3 rounds of funding. The schedule for each round of funding can be found on our website and also on the RFP. So we are in round 1. And what is the purpose of having 3 rounds of funding? Having consecutive rounds of funding allows us to be responsive to our community and community needs. So at the end of round 1, we will be making modifications to round 2, and the same at the end of round 2, we'll make modifications for round 3. And the purpose of those modifications is to ensure that we have a balance of funding. And we want to make sure that we have a balance of funding across our 3 target industries: construction, healthcare, and manufacturing, across the state's 9 workforce regions, and also across our service types that the grants will be funding. And again, those are registered apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship, and supportive services for both of those. If you've had a chance to review the RFP, you may have noticed, or you may have questions about, am I eligible? And that's because we were not super prescriptive about eligibility. And we'll talk about this a little more, but we really wanted to give our communities the greatest freedom in being able to apply for these funds. One of the most important components of the Future Ready Oregon Senate Bill 1545 is the focus on priority populations. So the Senate bill defines the priority populations that you see here. You'll see this list of priority populations in the bill, in the RFP, and in both the large and small grant applications. So the 2 programs, as I've been discussing, large grants and small grants. A little bit more information about goals and eligibility. So as I mentioned before, I would really encourage you to think of eligibility in terms of what your proposal is wanting to fund. So there is not a specific eligibility requirement around the type of organization that you are. It's more so to do with the service type. So are you creating a new registered apprenticeship program in healthcare or manufacturing? Are you creating a pre-apprenticeship program in construction, healthcare, or manufacturing? Or are you wanting to fund supportive services for pre-apprentices and apprentices in either registered apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship programs? And if you're doing one of those things, or more than one of those things, are you doing it in one of our target industries, which again is construction, healthcare, and manufacturing? So we're going to be talking more specifically, getting into the details about the large grants. We'll come back a little later in the presentation to the small grants, and I'll review the information that you're seeing on the slide for the small grants then. So large grants starting at $25,000 up to the amounts that you see on this slide. So for round one, the total amount of awards for construction pre-apprenticeship programs will be $1.25 million. So if you are considering applying, your proposal, if it necessitates, could be $1.25 million, or it could be less than that. And we're estimating that the total amount for construction pre-apprenticeship is $1.25 million. So as you're reading through the RFP and the information about large grants, you'll notice that your budget narrative is asking you to have a scalable budget. And that is because we are working within this 1.25 million or other respective max amounts for each of the categories that you're seeing. And again, these are for new and expansion efforts. Also outreach and retention, specifically around priority populations. So before I move to the next slide, round one, max awards and awards starting at $25,000. If you have questions, please do submit those in the chat. So when we talk about supportive services or pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship, and if that process isn't familiar to you, if this is, if you are healthcare or manufacturing and you haven't been part of the apprenticeship community before, you might have questions about what is included or what types of things might I need to include in my application. So this slide is specific to supportive services in the construction industry. And if you were wanting to apply for these supportive services, these are things that could be included. In the RFP, it references the sample grant agreement, which is on our website. So the information for each of the industries and for each of the service types, apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship, and supportive services, can be found there. So if you're in construction, you are wanting to apply for supportive services, that includes all of the items in orange. Transportation, childcare. It also includes administration costs and personnel that you might need to carry out these activities. I've been referencing the RFP, and I also want to encourage you to look at the application instructions. So on our website, there is a separate document that is the application instructions for large grants. And it's full of great information and tools to help you create a successful application. You'll be submitting your application through our online application management system. And if you haven't registered for an account yet, I strongly encourage you to, because it might help to see the fields, the questions, the uploads that you'll need to complete in order to submit your application. You are able to apply for more than one target industry. We ask that you limit an application to one target industry, and within that one target industry, you could have more than one service types. So again, able to apply for more than one industry, just do so per application. You will be required to upload that budget form and a logic model. And if you have indicated key partnerships that are essential to meeting the outcomes or the goals of your proposal, you'll want to upload those partnership agreements as well. And as referenced in the previous slide, the logic model, wanting to touch on this a bit in case there are questions. The logic model will work in conjunction with your project work plan. So the inputs that you'll be documenting for your application include existing and new inputs or resources. So if you have existing staff that will be carrying out some of the activities in your proposal, please do include them. And if your application includes funding for new staff or contractors, please do include those as well, as they would be essential to completing the next column, which are your activities. Those then relate to your milestones. And again, all of this content will coordinate with your work plan. That application instruction document that I referenced before includes a worksheet to help guide you through these pieces. So talking a little bit about scoring criteria. We'll have an evaluation committee that is reviewing all of the proposals that meet the minimum requirements, and those minimum requirements are all outlined in the RFP and the application instructions. This slide is to illustrate how the application components relate to scoring criteria to help you really focus in on what the important pieces are. The icon that's listed there is a document that is on our website, which is the full detailed view of the scoring rubric that the evaluators will use. So again, wanting to give you a visual here about how these components relate to scoring criteria, and full details will be available on that scoring rubric on our website. So I touched on this a little bit, the evaluation process. The first step in the evaluation process is our accept decline stage. And that is a very simple evaluation of the essential application components. So we'll be checking to make sure that you have included components like your uploaded budget, your logic model, other essential components for your application. All of those applications that meet the essential components, that meet the requirements, will move to this next stage, which is the evaluation by our committee. Information about that committee is on our website. The evaluation committee will be reviewing the applications, all of the contents of those applications, and then they'll be making a recommendation. They'll be recommending whether or not the proposal should be funded, be considered for funding, or not be considered for funding. And those recommendations will then go to our Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council. And so I want to make sure that it's clear that the final determinations are made by the council. And again, the council meetings are listed on our website. Those are public meetings, and that is where the final determinations will be made. Once a final determination has been made for awards, the process will then move to grant agreements. Grant agreement terms will be for 1 year. So while us as an agency and all of the agencies that are distributing funds for Future Ready Oregon will need to have those disbursements done by the end of June 2023. And for the apprenticeship grants, each awardee will have 1 year from the date of grant agreement execution or from the signing of those agreements to complete their work and to spend those funds. So 1 year from contract or grant agreement execution. We have a short process for those grant agreements. Once awarded, we'll take the information from your proposals, add them to those grant agreements, and we'll work with the contact person for the awarded organization if we have questions or to clarify any of the pieces that are being included in those grant agreements. All of the agreements will be reviewed by the Department of Justice. And again, once all parties have signed, that is when the 1-year time clock starts. So a little bit about reporting and monitoring. We'll ask awardees to submit 2 reports. 1 report prior to the second distribution or the second disbursement of funds, and a report at the end of the grant agreement term. So I'll back up a little bit and talk about disbursements. For programs that are awarded, 50% of the disbursement will be provided at the beginning of the grant agreement, and then the second disbursement at month 4. And again, the first report before the second disbursement occurs, and then the second report at the end of the grant agreement term. As Director Ransom noted, we are onboarding staff, staff that has been funded through Future Ready Oregon funds, to be sure that the administration of these funds happens properly. And that includes staff to complete regular monitoring. The grant agreement will include a schedule and details for reports and monitoring. We're going to pause here for questions about large grants. Abby?
Hi, I have a queue of questions and I'm going to go through them as they appeared in the chat. And again, we encourage you to use the chat function to submit your questions. We are answering, and to ensure that everybody gets the exact same information, we have taken the questions from our first question and answer session, and we will be taking these and we'll be presenting the information and the questions online by, I believe, tomorrow, the end of business tomorrow. So want to make sure everybody gets the exact same info. I'm going to start in the order that we got them. The first question was, does this mean that existing construction pre-apprenticeship programs can only apply to 1, expand the number of people served, 2, provide outreach services to priority populations, or 3, provide retention services to priority populations? I'm actually going to punt that back to you, Sabrina, as you have done the most work with the RFP.
Great, thank you. So the intention of these funds is very much to expand apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship capacity. So I think I will be careful in answering this question because we want to encourage as many applicants to apply. And so I would suggest noting, explaining, detailing in your application if you are expanding by increasing the number of people that you are serving. Does that mean that you are adding weekends to your program? Does that mean that you are having concurrent programs run at the same time? How is the program being expanded in order to increase the number of people served? And then 2, provide outreach services to priority populations. Yes, you can apply to use the, I'm sorry, I just had a brain freeze. I want to say wraparound services, and I didn't want to.
Supportive services.
Yeah. I didn't want to confuse anyone by saying wraparound after seeing supportive services on the slide. So thank you so much to my team. So yes, that is something that you can, with an existing pre-apprenticeship program, apply for if you're wanting to provide those supportive services to your participants. And then the third item, provide retention services. So yes, so I would include the I would include outreach, retention, supporting completion as part of those supportive services. Those supportive services, as you saw in the on the slide, include childcare, transportation. It can help with participants that are experiencing unforeseen circumstances, natural disasters. Yes, and I hope that answers your question. Let us know if it didn't.
I want to jump in on that as well and clarify, since the last part of that question was provide retention services to priority populations. And actually, we are trying to expand supportive services to all apprentices and all registered and pre-apprenticeship participants. There is already a partnership with between the Bureau of Labor and Industries and the Oregon Department of Transportation that provides these exact services for apprentices and pre-apprentices in the heavy highway trades. And the goal of the supportive services piece is to expand those to all apprentices, all pre-apprentices, not just those that happen to be in the 6 heavy highway trades. And then I'm also going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to go a little bit out of order, because attached to this question was also, how do you define expansion? For example, numbers dipped during the pandemic. If we want to reach pre-pandemic levels, would that be expansion? And I also want to tread carefully. I think that my colleague Sabrina provided some very excellent examples of what expansion is, and we're keeping this fairly broad, but we would anticipate that yes, you would be serving more people, you would be adding more classes, whatever the case may be. But I think if you can make a case for this is what expansion means to us, that will be what the evaluators of these grants will be looking for. The next question was, are funds, this is a good one, are funds limited to only programs registered through OSAT, which is the Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council, or could they help a federally registered national registered apprenticeship program expand into Oregon? I think we might have to do ever so slightly a little bit of research so we can give you an official answer, but at the end of the day, we would want for you to register in Oregon for your Oregon program, or we would have to take a look at our reciprocity for federal programs. So I'm going to tell you that we'll follow up with you with an official answer unless you have something, Director Ransom. Look for the official answer tomorrow when this is posted. We'll make sure we get it.
Exactly, because of the limitations in which these funds can be spent, there was no discussion that I was a part of that had to do with a federally registered national registered apprenticeship program. I would imagine that we would follow our usual guidelines and policies as it relates to having a federally registered program here in Oregon, but I'm going to lean into Abby's response to that specific question, and I want to give a very specific answer versus what I feel, because feelings aren't facts. Everyone knows I say that feelings aren't facts, so we'll get the facts and follow up with you, Jake. But that was a fantastic question.
Really good. You stumped us. Fantastic. I love it. Can we fund a variety of staff positions, for example, a classroom trainer, marketing, administrative personnel? I would tell you to refer to the RFP for allowable costs. And I would also just say, again, this is how well you can make the case in your application, through your logic model, through your narrative, your work plan, about how this is what the end product is going to be, your outcomes and goals, and how what you're asking to hire, is it commensurate with the number that you're saying you're going to expand to. A lot of this is going to depend on your ability to make the case. But hiring staff is not allowable. It's not allowable. It is allowable to hire staff. Let's just reframe that. I'm continuing through these in order. What is the difference between the 3 rounds? Is there any reason not to apply now? Can we apply in multiple rounds? Fabulous question. You can apply in all of the rounds. The difference between the rounds, as Sabrina indicated at the beginning of this, is we really want to meet the goals of the Future Ready Oregon legislation. And in the apprenticeship sphere, it was very specific to building out and expanding apprenticeship in manufacturing and healthcare, pre-apprenticeship in manufacturing, healthcare, and construction, and supportive services across all registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. So if we got to the end of round 1 and we realized, like, hey, we really didn't have folks applying from Central Oregon or Eastern Oregon, or we didn't have folks from these priority populations applying, or we didn't have folks from the manufacturing industry apply at the numbers that we had hoped, then what we're going to do is we're going to really kind of hone in future rounds to try to make sure that we're really balancing these across industry, across service types, across the state. We don't just want the I-5 corridor, Portland metro area to be the only holder of these funds. So that's the difference. And again, there's nothing stopping you from, even if you are successful in round 1, maybe you decide, wow, that started off great. Now we want to do that with a different industry and go for that in round 2. You can absolutely do that. There's nothing stopping you. There's no reason, I would say, and then part of that was, is there any reason not to apply now? I would apply now because this is the broadest the criteria is going to be. After this, it's going to start narrowing as we start making determinations about where we need to do more work to get more applicants. The next question was, we are in the process of becoming a registered apprenticeship program with BOLI. We expect it to be complete by July. Does this mean we can't apply in round 1 and need to wait until round 2? Absolutely not. This money is here to help you get to that goal. So please, like, as part of your thing, include where you are in the process, what it is that you're doing. But no, this money is there to help specifically with that. Will we be receiving a copy of how our proposal was scored so that we can address those issues in future rounds? Absolutely. We want for this to be a very transparent process. We want to provide feedback so that you can be successful in future rounds. Here's a good one. Do the funds need to be spent by 7/30/23 on our end, or just allocated to a budget that may run past that date? So we do not have to spend them by that date, and I believe it's actually 6/30/2023, not 7/30/2023, just so we're all on the same page. We as a division have to have them obligated, so you can take that money. You have a year contract from when you have a year contract with us from the time that you receive that award. So do you want to tack on to that, Sabrina, or Director Ransom?
Just to emphasize that funds will need to be spent by the end of your grant agreement term. And when you are creating your proposals, being sure that the activities and funds can be spent within that year.
Excellent. Okay, this looks kind of we received an invitation to this event. Do we qualify as a construction firm? We are Ash Creek Forest Management, a local company that provides ecological restoration services. I think if you want to have a conversation offline, I think we could do that. I think that, again, the primary categories for registered apprenticeship are manufacturing and healthcare. For pre-apprenticeship, it's a lot broader. So while you may not be a construction firm for the sake of how we look at apprenticeship, it's hard to see how you would be a manufacturing or a healthcare firm, but so registered apprenticeship would be out, but pre-apprenticeship is absolutely an option. So we would definitely want to follow up with you about that. And then the next one I saw is if we will be starting from scratch and putting together an internship program, is that acceptable and realistic? I don't know if it, so I think that you would want to read the RFP because there is, if it's an internship as opposed to a registered apprenticeship or a pre-apprenticeship. Okay, I see. I think we meant an apprenticeship. Okay, thanks, Maggie. Appreciate the clarity. I don't think it's unrealistic if you're starting from scratch. I think there are absolutely there are ways to put this together so that by the end of your 1-year grant period, you are, that could be your end goal, is that we're through the council process and we have maybe brought in our first group of apprentices. It takes, it can take, the council meets quarterly. It can take, 6 months to get a program through council. So, and sometimes longer if we hit a bunch of snafus. So I don't think it's unrealistic, but I would definitely start meeting with our team soon so that we can, and our team, I mean my team, I'm on the operations side instead of the grant side. So I would definitely want you to make contact and we could start working with you on that. And then, are there any tools available to help write a grant proposal? So all of the tools that we have available are on our website, which is linked in this PowerPoint, which I believe you'll be getting a copy of. Is that correct, Sabrina?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. I do not see any more questions. Oops. Oh, Abby, did you answer Arthur's question about existing programming? I believe we did, but is there a specific part that you would like me to answer again, Eddie?
I don't think you did, Abby. I think you missed it. Arthur's question is just to clarify, this is not to support existing programming, but it's for expansion. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can support an existing program to expand. So you may exist already, but want to expand how much. You don't have to start a brand new program. You can add more students, add more days, add more. I mean, there's, again, that's another thinking of expansion broadly.
Just to clarify, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
But yeah, I was just wanting to just confirm. I think I'm hearing this is really for about expansion. And if you said, here's our ongoing program, we're looking for BOLI funds to support that ongoing programming, I don't think I'm hearing that's what this is for. It's really about expanding either like the number of people served or the supportive services, the breadth of supportive services, but just not, it sounds like it's may not be to fund what we're already doing. Is that correct? Or is there some flexibility there?
So I would say if you are going to maintain programming exactly as it exists right now, then expansion is probably not what you're wanting to do with funds. If you are wanting to support outreach, retention, and completion amongst your participants, and specifically for individuals within priority population communities, that is most definitely what we would hope programs would apply for and implement amongst their existing programs.
So I think I'm hearing we would not apply if we have a workforce training program and we train 100 people per year, and we said yes, we'd like to apply for classroom instruction for those 100 people. I think I'm hearing that would not be an eligible request. That it has to be expansion oriented, not just ongoing service for existing programs. I apologize if I'm not clear.
I think Abby and I are both looking at each other. Oh, sorry. So when you say add instruction, classroom instruction, so that's not a component that currently exists, and you're wanting to add that component?
No, I'm saying if we have a component that we already provide and we're asking, hey, can we get funding to continue providing this? Is that allowable?
I would say not, but if your program is set to expire, like the program is going to end, then I think that you could make a case in your application to continue the program if it's not able to continue, if not for support, and indicating how support will help sustainability for the program. So yeah, as I hope that you can see that we're really trying to help and to work and to encourage people to apply and to make sure that these funds get out into the community as much as possible so that we reach our goals of expanding apprenticeship and creating access for those in priority populations. Happy to talk more with you about it, but Director Ransom, do I see?
I do. I just had a clarifying question to your question. If your current program is funded through another grant source, this is not intended for you to utilize this funding in exchange for grant funding that you already have in place for your existing program. However, if the intention is to build up your program to increase the capacity of your program to target outreach to priority populations, maybe in areas of the state where you currently do not have a large outreach effort, then the funds can be used for that, but it can't be used to replace anything that's already in existence in order for those funds to be used in a different manner. Hopefully that provides a little bit of clarification more.
That's really helpful. I think I'm hearing that, yeah, if we have a training program and we train, 100 people per year and place 60, 70 in jobs, and we say, okay, we want to keep doing that. I think I'm hearing that's not we want to expand the either the breadth or do it and add something new or expand the breadth of the retention of the supportive services. But it's not just, sometimes BOLI funds ongoing program for pre-apprenticeship programs, for example.
Exactly.
I think I'm hearing this is not that.
But there will be other grant opportunities because now that now that the grant administration has been moved over to the authority of our council, that's the intention, so that we can provide more access to opportunities. But, this is the first one out of the gate, just happens to be Future Ready Oregon, although we already have a grant application with the DOL right now, which broadens our scope, which I think would align more with what you're asking. But again, I would love for us to have a more detailed conversation offline, because I feel like there's layers that we need to unpack to identify compatibility fit with this investment and what your program's needs are. Can we go ahead and do that?
That's
Make sure we get your contact information.
I'll have should I have our executive director reach out to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we can arrange something.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move through the next few questions. Thanks for the robust conversation. That was really good. There is a question about, is there advice determining a reasonable ask amount? We have existing pre-apprenticeship that is a consortium. We're considering 100,000 each. Yes, we'll discuss so it sounds like that's going to be discussed with Director Ransom. And then I just want to say for everybody, we intentionally left the scope of the amount that you could ask for very broad, and that is in part why we asked everyone to include how you would scale this project. So if there's, we want to expand, and so if there, if you shoot for the moon and you're the only one that applied, maybe it makes sense for you to get that money, but maybe 10 other programs applied and everybody has a good idea, then how can we scale things so that everybody can get a piece of the pie to expand? Are there specific apprenticeship categories within the healthcare field, and is there a place to see the different apprenticeship categories? Yes, Maggie, there are. They are on our website. I can tell you right now, off the top of my head, what we have that exists currently is medical assisting, long-term care certified nursing assistant, qualified mental health associate, and I believe it's certified alcohol and drug counselor. We're looking at having a pharmacy tech and a dental assisting tech on board here within the next quarter. Healthcare is just in dire need all over the place. And so any healthcare occupation that you wanted to bring online, we would be happy to help you with, and we have experience, and we also have stakeholders throughout the state that have done this already that we can put you in contact with to help you make that happen.
May I ask a quick follow-up? This is Meg,
Certainly.
the one who asked. We're
certainly.
looking at something we're calling behavioral health support specialists who would get community CHW training. They might be QMHA, but just like a number, because we're in a large health center, there's different types of behavioral health support needed in different settings. So can we, like, it'd be a brand new kind of apprenticeship program that's called behavioral health support specialist with different like layers of certification on top. Does that sound like it's the kind of thing you're looking for, or that's appropriate?
I think we could absolutely make that work. There's certainly some confines within which we have to operate. So there's existing federal standards and then there's state standards, but I can tell you that the federal standards have very broad categories, and they'll say can be called this, and there's probably about 15 different names, and there's probably behavioral support specialist under there. And the idea of stackable credentials is something that we absolutely would support. And so we might have to be a little innovative in how we structure your program, or if we have like a multiple standards of apprenticeship, but we can absolutely make it happen. We've done it with other programs as well.
Thank you so much.
You bet. And then I think this is the last question in this series is, can expansion include adding new apprenticeship programs that expand existing programs to offer more opportunities for apprentices? Kimberly, I'm not sure if I totally understand the question. Are you saying like, go ahead.
No, thank you. Hi, Abby.
Hi.
So our question is, we have currently have a program with 8 different apprenticeship programs. What we're finding is that a lot of those programs fill up and there's a waiting list. So we have a pre-engineered metal buildings. And so we would like to add another construction apprenticeship program. I think it's construction specialist or something, but it would be a new program to allow more opportunities for our students. I just didn't know if the expansion included new apprenticeship programs.
So that's a great question. And unfortunately, in this funding, there is no allotment specifically for construction-based registered apprenticeship expansion.
Okay, is it for pre-apprenticeship, Abby?
Pre-apprenticeship, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So if you guys wanted to start some pre-apprenticeship classes to support your program, this is the time, and this is the pot of money to help you do it. And so we will absolutely work with you on that.
Oh, yay. Okay, that's great news. Thank you.
Yeah, just reach out to me, Kimberly. No problem, and I'll get you connected with the correct staff.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, that is the end of our large grant questions.
Great. And if you joined us to learn about the small grants, we'll go through our next few slides will be about those small grants. And before we continue, I want to encourage everyone to start the conversations now. If you have questions, if you need more information, please do reach out. And if you are in process of designing something, starting those conversations now, even if you end up applying for round 2 or round 3, is really important. Also want to encourage applications by saying that funds As Abby mentioned, funds can be used for staff, for contractors, and the detail that you want to include is the percentage of that full-time or part-time employee that is needed and that will be funded to support the activities in your proposal. So marketing, yes. Does your proposal support a full-time marketing person? That will be something that you'll need to provide evidence for, as Abby mentioned, but do want to encourage you to think through all of those pieces that you might need, especially if you are a program that has not had capacity to do the outreach, to do the retention, to focus on completion rates, especially for those in priority populations. So we'll go ahead and move to so this is the same slide that you saw before. Now we'll be talking about the Small Grants Award Program. And the goals of the Small Grant Award Program is to reach those communities that are the priority population, that are on the priority population list. And the best way to reach and engage communities, priority population communities, is through existing relationships. And so when we are talking about the Small Grants Award Program, we mentioned specifically community and culturally based organizations, Oregon's 9 federally recognized tribes, and organizations providing services to priority populations. So really wanting to encourage these organizations to join us in the expansion and success of apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship, and join us in engaging individuals in those priority populations. And if you are a registered apprenticeship program or a pre-apprenticeship program, you are able to apply for these small grant awards, and your application can be in addition to a large grant application that you may have in process. And you would need to do that in conjunction, in partnership with an organization that's listed. A little bit more about the small grant awards. The application is a streamlined application from the large grant application. So there is a handful of identifying questions for your organization and a few questions to tell us about the need for the funds that you're requesting and how those funds will be spent. The application is online, so it's through the same application management system. It will be scored by staff. So different than the large grants that will go through the evaluation committee, the small grants will be scored internally by staff. Those scores and recommendations will go to the Apprenticeship and Training Council. So the council is making final determinations for all awards, regardless of small or large. And then similar to the large grants, once the final determination has been made, if awarded, we'll move into the grant agreement. And I'm emphasizing here the focus on priority populations and using those existing relationships that occur through community-based and culturally based organizations and the other organizations and communities listed to outreach, to create those pathways for individuals in priority populations to enter pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship programs. And you'll see in the application instructions for the small grant award programs that we say innovative. And that doesn't mean that we're asking you to do something that no one else has done before. It can be new to you as an organization. It can be new to you as a program, community, region. So again, thinking broadly there. And then finally, the scoring criteria for the small grants. We'll be looking for feasibility, the likelihood to succeed, the ability to expand the idea that you are test running with these funds. Can we implement it broadly? And then lastly, the alignment with goals, priority populations, and apprenticeship. If you're a registered apprenticeship program or pre-apprenticeship program, those partner agreements will be required for the small grant applications. Okay, so we are here. Questions for small grants? It looks like we are seeing no questions for small grants. Everyone's doing large grants. Go big or go home.
Is there any chance you could offer some examples of what might make a good small grant idea? Is that cheating?
No, not at all. And I encourage all feedback. So this is great information for us because, as someone mentioned, are there tools to write a proposal? We want to, in thinking about round 2, do some of these things that are helpful to you all. So ideas. I'm going to throw some out there. I'm not going to value them as good, but ideas could include, if I am an apprenticeship program and I have very low numbers of individuals applying for, entering, completing my program, I'm going to look at the community and culturally based organizations around me. I'm going to start discussions with them, ask them if there's interest in creating workforce opportunities, creating employment opportunities, creating earn while you learn opportunities. So that way folks are getting paid while they're learning the trade, and work with them to see what might be possible for them. Are they interested in hosting information sessions? What works for them in terms of engaging and reaching the priority population that they work with, because that can look different depending on the individuals that they're serving. So it really is about, again, starting the conversation now, understanding what you might want to achieve. Maybe you have people entering your program and there is something happening where you're not seeing the completion rates that you want to. So maybe you're starting conversations with those in community-based and culturally based organizations about getting some subject matter expertise and implementing new strategies in your program. But I'll look to Lisa and Abby to add other ideas that they might have. So Abby, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Regina, I want you to know I see your question and we'll get to it in just a second. I think that all the ideas that you threw out there are really good, Sabrina. And I also think, this is the 10,000 is kind of like seed money. And so I think dream big. If you have that big idea and you just kind of want to do some exploratory stuff about, how can we do better outreach with this community? Or could we run and I'm going to pause so I can take a breath. I want to encourage you to also look at the list of the 10 priority populations, because it is a very vast list. So if you wanted to do like maybe a specific outreach event for individuals in incarceration, or if you wanted to see if you could put on some kind of event and invite community partners with it to kind of that maybe don't traditionally access your pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship. If you want to do some marketing material specific to some target priority populations, and you want to consult with folks first within those communities to ensure that you're doing so in a responsive and mindful way, all of that is wide open. The $10,000, the questions are very broad, but they're there to, it's idea money. Like, how can we do this? Let's throw some spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks in terms of being able to retain our diverse apprentices and bring more of them in. And I think that that segues really nicely into Regina's question, which is, am I understanding correctly that the small grant funds are designed to help certain populations have better access and or more support from pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs through specific partnerships only? So the partnerships only are, so I got super ahead of myself. Sorry about that. Yes, we want to create more access to the 10 identified priority populations. The partnerships only piece is for existing registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. So any community group, culturally specific community group that wants to make its own connections and try to figure out how to get folks interested in pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship, they can come to us. What we're really trying to get existing registered apprenticeship and existing pre-apprenticeship programs to do is to cultivate relationships with the resources that exist in your areas to do more outreach and retention and recruitment of these priority populations. And not only, so that does require a partnership, but it also feeds into your requirements at your equal employment opportunity and registered apprenticeship requirements. It helps you out in the long run. And I would also just say it's not enough to just bring folks into registered apprenticeship. If you don't have an environment that supports their retention and graduation, that could be a very valuable place to find a community partner to come in and kind of do that evaluation of your program from an equity standpoint and provide that feedback so that you can change your systems to be more, to lend itself to more retention. So if you can have that partnership, you would have to have that partnership in writing if you were an apprenticeship program or a pre-apprenticeship program that already exists trying to apply for the small grants.
And I'll just add to that in Senate Bill 1545, when it defines community organizations, culturally based organizations, it is identifying the reflection of staff to those populations that they're serving. So the purpose and intention of the partnerships is to engage individuals in priority populations in ways that are significant and authentic. And that is best done by organizations that have established relationships. So if there are more questions about that, we'd be happy to answer them. But I also don't want to, I know that we're over time, so I don't want to belabor the point. Any other questions? All right, we just have, I think, 2 slides left. We'll move really quickly. So as Director Ransom mentioned at the beginning of this session, we have very short timelines. The short timelines are asking both us as an agency and you as applicants to develop and implement very quickly. So while we are developing the components that make up this grant program and administration, you are making up developing the components for the program expansion or new programs that you are applying for, and then needing to implement those as soon as you are awarded within that 1-year time frame. So because we're all in this short timeline, we have many resources, and I made notes of the resources that you all recommended today to assist you in being successful. The resources that are linked on the next slide are available on our website. And if you are awarded, you will not be doing this work alone. We'll have a specific grants team staff that will be there to assist you, that will be providing you with technical assistance to be sure that your creation of the new program, your expansion is successful, that you're able to meet the outcomes that you outlined and that were awarded. So just know that it doesn't stop once you're awarded. We're here to help. And this is the last slide. So lastly, we have these resources available. These resources are already on our website, including application instructions, the worksheet for your work plan for the large grants, and we'll be adding to these resources by posting this recording, by posting the presentation slides, and by being available to you. And Director Ransom, would you like to close?
Thank you, Sabrina, for the presentation, Abby, for your lending of your time, your talent, your subject matter expertise, and to those that attended. As you can see, it's a lot that is in front of all of us. But as Sabrina said, just to reaffirm, you're not in this alone. We're all in this together, and I'm not just saying that. So if you find that in your process of submitting an application that you do have questions, there should be no unanswered question throughout this entire process. Because this is, for many of us, our first time embarking upon this type of initiative. So we're all going to be learning a lot in this process to make it better the next time and the next time, because this is not the last. So with that, we just want to ensure that as an agency that we're moving through this process with integrity and transparency, and know that this measure is a clear and it's very intentional from the legislature. And that is to expand apprenticeship in industries and communities to grow Oregon's workforce. So thank you so much, and to be continued.